One of the most chilling and widely discussed criminal cases in Hong Kong history is the so-called Hello Kitty murder. It is remembered for its extreme brutality, extended suffering inflicted on the victim, and the disturbing level of cruelty revealed during the investigation. When the case came to light, it horrified the public not only because of what happened, but also because of the unimaginable details uncovered in court. The victim was a 23-year-old woman named Fan Man Yi, who died in 1999. Her life before the tragedy had already been marked by hardship and instability. Raised in difficult circumstances and having spent time in foster care, she later became connected to Hong Kong's nightlife environment, working in clubs and occasionally engaging in sex work. This vulnerable position unfortunately left her open to manipulation and exploitation by dangerous individuals. What began as a relatively small dispute soon spiraled into one of the most horrifying criminal cases in Hong Kong's history. Fan was accused of taking a wallet that belonged to Chan Man Lok, a local drug dealer and low-level criminal. The wallet reportedly contained money and identification documents. When Chan discovered the incident, his reaction was not limited to anger. It escalated into a decision that would lead to extreme violence. Along with two accomplices, Leung Shing Cho and Leung Wai Lun, Chan abducted Fan and took her to an apartment in the Kowloon district of Hong Kong. That apartment later became infamous as the place where weeks of prolonged abuse took place. From the beginning, the situation was not about recovering stolen property or seeking repayment. It was about total control, intimidation, and humiliation. In the days and weeks that followed, Fan was subjected to relentless violence. She was restrained against her will, repeatedly assaulted, and tortured in various ways. Investigations later revealed reports of burns, blunt force injuries, and deliberate deprivation of food and basic care. The abuse did not remain consistent. It escalated over time, growing more severe as the perpetrators appeared to lose all sensitivity to her suffering. Alongside the physical torment, Fan also endured intense psychological abuse. She was constantly humiliated, threatened, and stripped of any sense of dignity. One of the most disturbing revelations from the case was that she was allegedly forced to smile and laugh while being harmed, as her captors treated her suffering as entertainment. This detail particularly shocked both investigators and the public, highlighting a level of cruelty that went far beyond revenge or punishment. The situation deteriorated rapidly as the weeks went on. Fan's condition worsened significantly due to the continuous abuse, lack of medical care, and malnutrition. Eventually, she succumbed to her injuries. However, even after her death, the horror of the crime did not end. In an attempt to conceal what they had done, the perpetrators dismembered her body. The most infamous detail, one that gave the case its name, was the discovery of her skull hidden inside a Hello Kitty doll. This shocking and grotesque act symbolized the disturbing nature of the crime and became a focal point in media coverage. It was a detail that captured global attention and left a lasting impression on anyone who heard about the case. The crime might have remained undiscovered for longer if not for a critical development. A 13-year-old girl who had been associated with the perpetrators came forward to the police. She reported that she had been haunted by nightmares involving Fan's ghost, which compelled her to confess what she knew. Initially, authorities were skeptical, as the story seemed too bizarre to be real. However, her account was detailed and consistent enough to warrant an investigation. When police raided the apartment, they found evidence that corroborated her claims. Although much of the body had been disposed of, forensic investigators were able to recover remains and identify them as belonging to Fan. The condition of the apartment itself told a grim story. There were signs of prolonged violence, bloodstains, and makeshift restraints. The arrests of Chan and his accomplices quickly followed. During interrogation, they admitted to their involvement, but often attempted to downplay the severity of their actions. Some claimed that they had not intended to kill Fan, while others shifted blame among themselves. Despite these attempts, the evidence against them was overwhelming. The trial that followed drew significant public attention. The details presented in court were harrowing, and many people struggled to understand how such cruelty could be inflicted over such an extended period. The case raised important questions about human behavior, morality, and the societal factors that can contribute to such extreme acts of violence. Ultimately, Chan Manlok and his accomplices were convicted of manslaughter rather than murder. This outcome was partly due to the difficulty in determining the exact cause of death and the lack of a complete body. They were sentenced to life imprisonment, which in Hong Kong typically means a minimum of 20 years before eligibility for parole. The relatively lesser charge of manslaughter sparked controversy and debate. Many felt that the punishment did not fully reflect the severity of the crime. The brutality and prolonged nature of the torture led to widespread calls for harsher sentencing laws and a re-evaluation of how such cases are handled within the legal system. Beyond the legal outcome, the case had a lasting impact on Hong Kong society. It highlighted the vulnerabilities faced by individuals like Fan, who often exist on the margins of society without adequate protection or support. It also exposed the darker side of urban life, where crime, exploitation, and violence can thrive in hidden corners. The psychological aspect of the case has been the subject of analysis by criminologists and psychologists. The behavior of the perpetrators suggested a combination of factors, including a desire for power, a lack of empathy, and possible desensitization to violence. The group dynamic may have also played a role, as individuals can sometimes commit acts in a group setting that they would not consider on their own. Media coverage of the case was extensive, both locally and internationally. The shocking details, particularly the use of the Hello Kitty doll, captured public attention and led to widespread discussion. Over time, the case has been referenced in documentaries, books, and films, often serving as a grim reminder of the extremes of human cruelty. However, there has also been criticism of how the case has been portrayed in media and popular culture. Some argue that the sensational aspects have overshadowed the victim's humanity, reducing her story to a series of shocking details rather than a reflection of a real person who suffered immensely. This raises broader questions about how society consumes and processes stories of violence. In remembering this case, it is important to look beyond the crime itself and focus on the life of Fan Man Yi. She was not just a name tied to a horrific ghutna, but a real person who faced hardship, vulnerability, and struggle long before her tragic end. Her life reflects the reality of many individuals who exist on the margins of society, often without protection or support. What happened to her was not only an act of extreme violence, but also a failure of humanity to recognize and safeguard those most at risk. Her story serves as a powerful reminder of the consequences of unchecked cruelty. When empathy is lost and people are reduced to objects of control or punishment, the results can be devastating. The case forces society to confront uncomfortable truths about how easily compassion can disappear when individuals are dehumanized. It also raises important questions about responsibility, both at an individual level and within the broader social system. The case, widely known as the Hello Kitty murder, remains one of the most disturbing incidents in modern criminal history. It continues to be studied and discussed not just because of its shocking nature, but because of what it reveals about human behavior. It shows the frightening extremes of what people are capable of when moral boundaries collapse and cruelty is allowed to grow unchecked. Even decades later, the impact of the case has not faded. It stands as a chilling example of how far violence can escalate when there is no intervention and no accountability. At the same time, it has contributed to greater awareness around crime, victim protection, and the need for stronger social support systems. Discussions around justice and morality have been influenced by the case, prompting reflection on how such tragedies can be prevented in the future. The legacy of this ghutna is complex. It is both a warning and a lesson, one that highlights the darkest side of human nature while also urging society to do better. Remembering it is not about revisiting horror for its own sake, but about acknowledging the life that was lost and ensuring that such cruelty is never ignored or repeated.